guys, I'm Phoebe.
I'm Adam.
We're the couple behind In the Great Wide, and we went to Death Valley National Park in April of 2024 to celebrate Adam's birthday.
Hey, best place to celebrate your birth is in Death Valley. There's actually a surprising amount of stuff to do in Death Valley, but this is probably the most popular attraction in the park.
Yeah, because it is the lowest point in all of North America, not just the United States, but in all of North America. It is 282 feet below sea level.
But Death Valley is one of the driest places on the planet, usually getting less than 2 inches of rain per year. So even though it's below sea level, Badwater Basin is totally dry, or at least it usually is.
Yeah, but we'll get to that in a minute. Badwater Basin started as a lake sandwiched between two mountain ridges thousands of years ago.
Yeah, it dried up naturally around 10,000 years ago, leaving a massive salt flat.
Yeah, it's about 200 square miles. It's massive.
It's really hard to understand the scale of it. Like, you can see pictures and it's like, oh, okay, until you walk out onto it and it just keeps going. It's like an illusion when you look at it. And the salt flats in Death Valley are everywhere. I was shocked when we were driving around and it was like, oh, there's another one, and there's another one, and they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
Badwater Basin is by far the most famous.
But the water from the lake contained minerals from the surrounding mountains. But when the water evaporated, the minerals concentrated until only salt was left, which created a really thick crust of salt that you can walk out onto.
To visit Badwater Basin, there's a paved parking lot off of a paved road, making it one of the easiest spots to visit in Death Valley National Park.
Yeah, the parking lot is pretty small though, so you'll want to get there as early as possible, which will also be better because of the heat in Death Valley.
Death Valley is the hottest place on Earth, according to a thermometer reading at 134 degrees at Furnace Creek, just 18 miles away from Badwater Basin in 1913.
Yeah, hottest place on Earth.
Yeah.
At least that's recorded. So it's really, really, really hot. So when you get out onto the salt flat at Badwater Basin, there is nowhere to hide from the sun. There is no shade anywhere. It's just the sun and then the white salt beneath you that you're walking on that reflects the sun back up at you, so you cannot escape from it.
It's just like a big mirror, and like you walk out and it's just hot. It's so hot.
Yeah, even though we were there in mid-April, it was still around 100 degrees, and so it was pretty brutal.
It was pretty hot. Just make sure you reapply your sunscreen before walking out into Badwater Basin, and make sure you carry water with you.
That's very important in Death Valley. Always sunscreen and water.
Yeah.
But first, before you walk out onto the flat, there's a small boardwalk with some informational signs, which we always like to stop and read because you learn a lot of fun little facts about the places that you're visiting.
You can also turn around and look up at the mountain behind you for the sea level sign 282 feet above you.
Yeah.
Just a little sign that says sea level.
It's small, but it is there.
I mean, it might actually be big, but it's 282 feet above you, so
Fair.
Who knows? It took a while for me to find it.
Yeah, it's hard to spot, but once you know it's there, you're like, oh, yeah.
At the top of the mountain, that mountain with the sign, is a place called Dante's View, which was one of our favorite places to go in the park.
Yes. It was a beautiful, beautiful view of Badwater Basin from up at Dante's View, for sure. But to get the full effect of Badwater Basin, you need to walk out onto the salt flat. Don't just stay on the boardwalk.
Yeah, as you walk out onto the salt flat, notice the mountains in front of you. Even though it was 100 degrees when we were there was snow on top of the mountains.
That's because it's the tallest point in Death Valley. It's called Telescope Peak, and it is 11,043 feet tall, which means that it is 11,325 feet above you, which is over 2 miles.
2 miles up. It's crazy.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the mountains are taunting you with their snow caps when it's 100 degrees where you are and you're looking up at snow. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, we were so glad to have our Frogg Togg towels, which are made of a special material that holds water for longer than a regular towel to help keep you cool.
Yeah, they were a lifesaver for us on this trip, so I'll put a link in the description below so you can find them on Amazon.
Yeah, we've used them quite a bit, actually. We were also, when we were in Joshua Tree, where it was really hot as well.
And at Kern River.
It definitely helps. They're good. It's a good investment.
Yeah. Now, if you are extremely lucky, you could end up seeing a tiny part of the ancient lake that reformed after heavy rainfalls, which is called Lake Manly.
We were already planning our trip to Death Valley for April when the news came that Lake Manly had reappeared in February.
Yeah, and we assumed it would be all dried up by the time we got there, but it wasn't.
Yeah, we actually had to walk quite a ways out on the salt flat to get to it, but it was so cool to see.
Yeah, this is one of the few things that I will admit is probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I hate the phrase once-in-a-lifetime, but last time...
There's no control over it.
Yeah, and the last time the public had access to see Lake Manly was 19 years ago in 2005.
Yeah, it did technically appear after Hurricane Hillary in 2023, but those floods were so bad in Death Valley that they had to close the entire national park for a month and no one was allowed in.
Yeah, but by the time we visited, Lake Manly was only about ankle deep. It's not like a lake, you know, the way that you think about lakes.
Just a lot of standing water.
Yeah. It's not a place where you can like go fishing or anything like that, but it was about ankle deep, and I had seen a number of YouTube videos from other creators saying that the water felt nice to walk in barefoot because the water softened the salt. And a bunch of people around us seemed totally fine walking barefoot through it too, so we decided to join in.
It was not the best. It was painful. The salt was very rough. It was not fun to walk on.
He didn't want to do it to begin with.
I was like, you know, somebody convinced me to do it.
I was just like, you know what? We have come all this way. And who knows if we're ever going to see Lake Manly again. Let's just take off our shoes and walk in the water.
I started walking, and then I turn around, and she's still just standing there. She's like, this hurts.
I was not just standing there. I was moving very slowly because I know I have super sensitive skin, but I do not understand how that many people were just walking around like it was nothing. I kept pushing myself to go further out into the water because I thought it was going to get better, but it did not.
No, the best solution to this is to take water shoes.
Yes, for the love of God, take water shoes.
Or just at least sandals, like something you can walk in and then get back into your socks and shoes afterwards.
Yeah, but putting on your socks and shoes after this is not really fun because your socks and shoes are probably going to be a little sweaty because it's very hot in Death Valley.
Yeah.
And your skin will be super dry.
I have we have waterproof chucks that we wear. We've been using for years, and the downside of that is that it makes my feet real hot. And when I took my socks off, I could have squeezed the sweat out of them. Did not want to put those back on.
Lovely.
It was great. Did not want to put them back on, so I walked all the way back in my bare feet to the car. Not
a chance for me. No.
But yes, your skin will be super dry after. I mean, you're literally on a bed of salt, so it's just sucking moisture out of your skin. So make sure you have plenty of lotion on hand to re-moisturize and save yourself from the giant amount of salt you're walking through.
Yeah. Some sources say that the water at Badwater Basin is twice as salty as the ocean, and that's actually how it got its name.
Yeah, the story is that a 49er came through Death Valley in 1849, not a football player, and took his burro to the water in the basin, but the burro refused to drink it because it was too salty.
Yeah, hence the name Badwater Basin.
Yeah, Lake Manly is super cool to see, but it was a lot more enjoyable to look at and not walk through when we came back the next day for sunset.
Yeah, the water is super still, and it essentially looks like a mirror. And desert sunsets, if you are not aware, they are notoriously beautiful and colorful. So it was a real treat to get to see it reflected in Lake Manly.
However, there's also a lot of bugs that came out at sunset that were not there in the afternoon the day before.
Yeah, so if you want to do some stargazing, which Badwater Basin would be a fantastic place for, as long as you time your trip right with the moon cycles, just make sure that you take bug spray with you,
Yes.
because there is a surprising amount of wildlife in Death Valley.
If Lake Manly isn't there when you visit Death Valley, I would recommend going to Zabriskie Point or the Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes to see sunset.
Yeah, there are a lot of great spots for sunset in
Yeah.
Death Valley and sunrise
Oh, yeah.
if you're a morning person. We just went to Lake Manly for sunset
Yeah.
because it was like a mirror, so that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
But if you do get to go while Lake Manly is there, make sure that you at least walk around the edges of Lake Manly, because the ground kind of like condenses under your feet as you walk.
Yeah.
Kind of like, it reminded me a lot of AstroTurf.
Yeah, it's very spongy. It's very interesting. I didn't really realize it until we went back for sunset, mainly because my feet were in so much pain the day before. But when, just standing there and like seeing it move, it was pretty crazy.
It's trippy, for
Yeah.
sure. But we also unfortunately saw a lot of people had carved their names and stuff
Yeah.
into the salt because it was so spongy. And that was really disappointing. It's just so extremely disrespectful to the landscape, to the indigenous people that still live in Death Valley, and to other visitors, because now like our pictures and stuff, they have like other people's names and stuff carved into the landscape. It's not the natural landscape.
And I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, it's just salt, it's fine. But you could theoretically scar the land until the next major flood, which could be 20 years from now.
Yeah, so please just don't be that person, and just leave the landscape how you found it.
Yeah. But this is a really cool experience overall. It's unlike anywhere else that I've ever seen, and I don't think there's a lot of places like this in the world.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, it is strangely thrilling to be standing so far below sea level, but you're also so far away from the ocean in a place that is so dry.
Yeah.
It's just a really strange, unique feeling.
Breaks your brain a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
If you have a chance to see Lake Manly, definitely take it, because you might not ever get the opportunity again.
Yeah, if you're in Vegas, Badwater Basin is only a 2.5-hour drive away, so it could easily be a day trip for you. But if you're in Los Angeles, like us, then you should plan on staying at least one night in the area, because it is a 5.5-hour drive one way.
Yeah, we end up staying at the Furnace Creek Campground, which we will tell you more about in another video.
For more information about how to get to Badwater Basin, the best time of the year to visit, and entrance fees for Death Valley, you can head to the first link in the description below to read our full blog article.
We have a lot more videos coming up all about Death Valley, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of it.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the Great Wide somewhere.